chaser. He gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk, chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio Station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I'm so glad to be with everyone this evening. Tonight I have my wonderful friend who is the Committee for a Better Chicago. I always get the acronym, I have to get the words together. Representative and founder, correct?
No. Doc Walls.
Okay, Doc Walls is the founder, but you are definitely a representative. Mr. Jeff Much for coming out here this evening.
Thank you for having me. I apologize that it took me so long.
You've been you for a while, but better late than never. We're here now. Now we have two really serious topics to discuss, especially from where we sit in the city of Chicago. And the first one is about the police accountability situation. Mm-hmm. Now, in recent time, we have seen protests, mm-hmm. we have seen boycotts, and unfortunately, as of late, we have seen people shooting the police and actually committing murder. And from what we are being told, this is because, or in response to, police violence against African Americans, and particularly African American males. So in Chicago, once the Laquan McDonald video got released and things got really kind of, as they want to say, hairy around here, there's been going back and forth about IPRA mm-hmm. and police accountability in general. And I know Lori Lightfoot has been working, it looks like almost all sides of the yard trying to get things together, but it just has not come together. So can you give us a little bit of history about what's supposed to be happening and what's actually happening? Because I know there have been a couple of missed dates for deadlines we've already had passed.
Whoa, that is a very big question. What is supposed to be happening and what is actually happening? I guess what is supposed to be happening is we are supposed to be, as a city, Black, white, Jewish, Hispanic, so on and so forth. As a city, we are supposed to be reforming our police so that they better serve communities.
All right.
I believe that's what the general message has been, and there was a task force put together to investigate necessary and listen to the community and find out what was necessary. There were proposals made to city council as solutions. So that's what supposed to be happening. What actually is happening, in my estimation, is respectability politics.
Define that for the people that don't know what that means.
Well, my definition is this.
Yes.
A bunch of folks who want to make small changes, I wouldn't even call them adjustments to what is already taking place, because they don't want the folks that are in power. But the folks that are in power don't care about offending us unless they feel pain. And by pain, I mean unless they believe that they're going to be unelected, unless they believe that it's going to affect their bottom line. So we aldermen.
Thank you.
We have
Side joke
aldermen.
people.
We have aldermen that don't want to really on this issue. When you really get down the root causes of this, well, get down to the overreactions. It's pretty simple, in my estimation, the research that we have done with the Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. So, political repression has legislation on ordinance that we are proposing, right? It's called CPAC. We ready for that?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go.
That's a Civilian Police Accountability Council. It's community control of the police, to make it quite simple. Here's what we had. We had Laquan McDonald murdered by a police officer on video. We had Rekia Boyd murdered by an off-duty police officer.
We had the young man on the west side, as well as the grandmother who opened
the
door.
who opened the door. We had Dakota Bright shot in the back of his head, running without a weapon, and a weapon that they found 5 houses away that they claim was his. But let's go back to Laquan McDonald. The masses saw murder on tape. The masses of the people overwhelmingly saw murder, but it took 400 days. This gets us. This brings me to what is the actual problem. So some of these proposals say we need to have our police have more tasers. Our police officers need to have sensitivity training.
No, sensibility training.
Sensibility and sensitivity
Yes.
training. Those are not solutions. Those are band-aids. But this is what we are proposing. We're proposing to fix the sensibilities of the officers. But we have no power to do so. So let me tell you how this thing works. Laquan McDonald gets murdered. IPRA investigates. IPRA investigates and decides whether it was in the right or in the wrong.
Now, IPRA, for those that don't know, is the
Independent Police Review Authority.
which was supposed to have a civilian component, if I recall correctly.
Well, it's they call it all civilian.
But a lot of those people were
Ex-police officers,
right.
so on and so forth. Absolutely.
Okay.
And the chief of IPRA, the Independent Police Review Authority, is appointed by the mayor.
Okay, so that's not independent like the word would suggest.
Doesn't sound independent at all.
Got you. All right, let's go.
Okay, so IPRA, the Independent Police Review Authority, investigates. They decide whether or not this police officer, let's say that they decided that he was in the wrong. That now goes to the police board. Actually goes to the superintendent of police, who sits on the police board, right? And if they say he was guilty and he should be fired, the superintendent of police can say, I don't agree. Okay?
And then that stops things.
That stops things for the moment. If they disagree, he has to give them a reason why he disagrees. Now, since they disagree, the superintendent and IPRA, now this case goes to the police board. And the police board decides who was right.
And who sits on the police board?
9 individuals who are also appointed by the mayor,
I see.
along with the superintendent, who is appointed by the mayor. So in the city of Chicago, we have 11 individuals that determine police standard operating procedure, that determine police whether or not police committed misconduct or not, whether or not we see excessive force or we see necessary force. 11 individuals. All of those 11 individuals, the 9 people that sit on the police board, the 1 chief of IPRA, the Independent Police Review Authority, and the superintendent of police are all appointed by the mayor.
So they have no actual autonomy because their allegiance, if you will, mayor of the city who would be responsible if a city employee has done something with malfeasance or criminal, etc.
We must be on an intellectual radio show.
Wow.
That is exactly the state at which we are in. The person that would be, in theory, a co-defendant or responsible fiscally, financially, appoints the people that determine whether or not there was guilt. So if I am the chief of IPRA doing the investigations, and I see a case come by my desk that I'm sure is going to cost the city $20 million, do I think about the people first and foremost, or do I think about the mayor and how this might involve? If I am the superintendent and I see a case a misconduct case come across my desk, do I say absolutely that's misconduct over and over and over again, or do I say think about my boss
and my job
and my career? We're talking about careers. We're talking about a little bit more than a job. Future. We're talking about Barbara Bird Bennett stuff.
And for people that really don't think about it, once you get a name, quote unquote, as what I don't particularly think of as a whistleblower, I think of it as doing your job, but let's use the term whistleblower. It's hard, firstly, to stay here, and it's hard to go somewhere else and do what you've been doing because your name is out there as a whistleblower. And no department, especially now where the line is drawn, the blue line is drawn, wants a whistleblower on their squad.
Absolutely. So you stand up for the people when you are an appointed individual, and you might as well sign away your career, your future, especially in Chicago. Now, we're not even going to talk about how powerful Chicago is across the entire nation, how much power these politicians here carry. But in Chicago, your name is mud.
I had a gentleman on my show a little while ago by the name of Lorenzo Davis, who was basically screaming the roof off the place, saying that some of these are charged. And he was basically thrown to the wolves, whatever you want to call it, and basically gotten rid of.
If I'm not mistaken, the chief of IPRA at the time called him in and told him to change the determination on his report.
Yes.
And he refused.
And therefore, therein lies his problem.
That chief said, "You're not about to put this out in the public just because that officer shot that boy that was running away from him and lied and said that his partner was in danger, then ran up on the child after he shot him and stood on his head. That's not excessive force. Change that." That chief of IPRA knew what was on the line for him. And somebody had to go.
We're going to take a break on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com. And when we come back, we're going to have the first of 2 money moments. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the CPAC.
Absolutely.
Because we have to have some solutions because we see quite clearly the problems. We will be back on the Straight No Chaser show.
man, H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moment. Tonight, we're on step number 4 in our 8-part series, Cash Flow Mastery, 8 Steps to Financial Success. Real quick, let me recap the first 3 steps. Step number 1 is cash flow mastery. You got to get a mastery of the cash that you get in your hands on each and every month. Every dollar should have a destination. Step number 2 is create your mini emergency fund. That's $2,000 to $3,000 in some sort of liquid savings account, whether it's a money market account, a mutual bond fund, or a municipal bond fund. Somewhere you can get your hands on that money in the event of an emergency. Step number 3 is establish the habit of investing. Doesn't matter how much at this moment, just establish the habit. So if you're not contributing to a 401k plan, go ahead and get that started and make sure something is going to some sort of investment every time you get paid. And on to step number 4 is debt elimination. You want to attack your debt with a vengeance, because think about it like this. Every dollar that you are paying interest on is a dollar that you're not earning interest on as one of your investments. It is virtually impossible to build wealth and be drowning in debt at the same time. So you want to get on a good debt elimination plan, and we teach people to attack the debt with the smallest balance first, because it creates a positive snowball effect. So when you get that small balance debt to go away, that's more money you have to put towards the next debt. And you get that smaller balance debt to go away, that's more money that you have to put towards the next debt. And you keep moving up the ladder until ultimately all of your debt is gone. You can't build wealth and be drowning in debt at the same time. And as you start this debt elimination plan, be very conscious of the temptation to acquire more debt. That is extremely critical. Seems that every time we free up a little cash, we want to go create another bill with it. Let's stay out of debt once and for all. So if you understand, or if you are serious about improving your personal cash flow success, then I want you to go over to my website, www.financialhealthmentor.com, plug in your best email address, and you're going to be able to take a look at our income shifting program. That program will allow you to complete these 8 steps with all of the support and the tools that you need. And if you get a chance to talk to me after viewing that program, and you let me know you heard this on the Straight No Chaser show, then I will give you $50 off the cost of your financial success membership. So I'm your boy, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with Rhea Ray as your host. Until I talk to you next week, get your money up, because you can do it. Peace.
And we're back on the Straight No Chaser show. That was our first of 2 money moments this evening, and I have my guest, Mr. Jeff Baker. We are talking right now about the police accountability situation. So CPAC is an alternative to what we have currently going on in Chicago. Let's tell the truth and shame the devil, as they say. Chicago has been mired in police brutality since there were police officers.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell, I give history lessons occasionally, so I'm going to give a brief one now. Today's police, for a lot of us, are yesterday's slave catchers. You have to understand that there's a mentality that comes with that. And so you're looked at in a particular light, which studies have shown how Black children of certain ages are looked at as threatening, whereas white children of the same age are looked at as children. So you're already in a situation where the population that is considered the majority, which is Caucasian, overwhelmingly, even if it's subconsciously, views Black children differently. Then you have a poverty situation in Chicago, which is getting bigger and bigger and wider, where they are not interested in young people being employed. They're not interested in young people being educated. They are interested in fueling this system, which is the criminal justice system, which makes people money all around the board. So then you throw on top of that the violent nature of the world in general.
Mm-hmm.
In Chicago, that's a really funky combination.
That's a formula for disaster.
And as we know, like at the beginning of the show, there have been now retaliatory shootings because the officers that were shot in Baton Rouge, the shooter drove from Indiana, if I understand correctly. So so you travel somewhere to go shoot somebody. Just wow. But he is or was, I don't know if he's still alive or not, that angry, that incensed that he operated on that level, which is not a solution.
No.
CPAC is offering a solution.
Let me say, I wanted to respond to one thing you said. Absolutely, CPAC is offering a solution, the best solution that I've seen out there. Of course, it is not the solution, but it is one. We have to fight this thing from every angle. They're going to have to be people in the street causing ruckus. It won't necessarily be me screaming and hollering, but they have to be those people. They're going to have to be people that say they're going to hold back their dollar. I'm going to do some of that, hold back our dollars and put some financial pain. There have to be some people in City Hall with legislation and ordinances. There have to be some people tearing things down. There have to be some people building things up. This is a war. And in any war, you don't have all snipers. You don't have all generals. You don't have all foot soldiers. You have a multitude of strategic, tactical individuals, some shooters, some intelligence folks, so on and so forth. So
that are all working towards one goal.
So that's what we have here. A little bit of everything. I don't expect everybody to do what we do. So we have something that we consider a solution. But what I wanted to respond to that you said was, geez, no, the nation's police. This is popping up all over the place.
Oh, yes.
And we have folks telling us that the solutions are in research and data so that we can find those best practices. Get your college crap out of here. Your best practices. Where are these best practices?
Or like former mayor of New York, Giuliani said, teach your black children to be respectful, and then you'll be okay.
And a lot of us black folks have bought into that. But
that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother show. But best practices, you cannot identify. Tell me where these best practices are. Are they in San Francisco where they shot a young man down? I think it was 9 officers in a semicircle shooting a young man down. Is it in Dallas? Is it in Ferguson, St. Louis? Is it in Cincinnati? Where is it in New York? Where are these best practices? There are no best practices that you can refer to and tell us this is going to work. You cannot show us where these things have worked to save black folk from this racist, prejudiced programming about young black men, women, and our aggression. That's not going to stop it. What will help estimation is if regular folk like you and I that saw the Laquan McDonald video, regular folk like you and I were in the decision-making seat, in the seat of the decision maker, and we were not looking through rose-colored glasses, or we were not looking through save my job colored lenses. We were not looking through save the mayor colored lenses. We were not looking through I can't embarrass this political machine colored lenses. That's what we currently have. If we elect regular folk like you and I to be in the decision-making seat, are going to do what it takes to save their job too. And what is that? That is going to be serve the people that elect them, not the mayor that appointed them. Currently, we have folks that are worried about saving the mayor that appointed them. And what we need are people who are concerned with pleasing the people that elected them. So we are talking about community control, an all elected community control board that would be elected throughout the 22 districts in Chicago. And folks like you and I would sit on those boards. Now I've had aldermen say to me, well, what do those folks know? How can you just put anybody in there?
What do you know? Oh,
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
I must be on intellectual radio. I looked at him like, did you really say that? And it wasn't just one. It was about three or four.
I'm sure.
How do we know what you know? We vet. We ask you questions. We put you through trials and tests and such, and we choose. But the difference between electing an alderman and electing a mayor and electing somebody to sit on this board is we elect these individuals to focus on one specific thing. As my alderman, you got to worry about streets, you got to worry about, you got to worry about lights, you got to worry about 15 different things. You're juggling. We have these individuals that are worried about one thing and concentrate on one thing, like our state's attorney, who, when she made a mistake, we unelected her butt because she was and did not get it right. So you might elect your alderman because he's good with the streets, or he's good with the budget, or he's good with this or that. We talking about one thing. And this is important enough for us to elect somebody to concentrate on nothing but it. Our police are just that important, just like our city clerk. We find the city clerk's position so important that we elect the city clerk. We don't tell the mayor to appoint it. Our treasurer is so important that we elect the treasurer. We don't let the mayor appoint it. Our state's attorney, it's so important to our everyday lives that we elect those individuals. This is as important. And we need to be close enough to say, if you don't do this right, we gonna take you out.
And it's interesting, just as a side note, so people understand how Chicago is set up, Chicago specifically, there are only 3 elected jobs in Chicago.
Amazing.
And I don't think most people think about that because they see so many other things on the ballot.
Yes.
But most of the things you see on the ballot are county.
Yes.
They are not city.
They are not city.
It's only the city clerk, the city treasurer, and the mayor. Everyone else in Chicago's governmental hierarchy is appointed.
Entire Chicago.
In the entire
outside
city.
Of our aldermen, which are wards.
Wards.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Which makes it easy for there to be an emperor, right? For there to be one individual that holds so much power over every individual that we have something that's far from democracy and more like an oligarchy, something that's far from democracy. So what we're talking about is this crazy thing called democracy. And for some reason, some people are terrified of this notion.
Well, because it doesn't work for their individual interests.
Perhaps. But here's where we are now. Where we are now is today is the 18th.
Yes.
Tomorrow, the 19th, we'll be holding a press conference. That's the Alliance Against Race and Political Repression, where we'll be announcing, we have an alderman who will be announcing that he is going to introduce CPAC into city council. So now we have an alternative in city council. We have finally reached that point. How did we get to that point? We got to that point through long, protracted struggle. The only thing that our aldermen listen to and react to is numbers and numbers. Numbers of dollars or numbers of people.
Because numbers of people equals voters.
Numbers of people equals voters and equals their jobs. Absolutely. Equals their futures. And numbers of dollars can keep them in their job. They have found that if they invest enough money in putting their name on the radio, putting up enough signs, they can get reelected without doing a whole lot. If they can promise a few people a few things and give a few jobs, they can keep a job. But if we organize the people, they have to fear that. So that's what we do. The Alliance Against Race and Political Repression, we out in the community every weekend for the past 3.5, 4 years. Every weekend we're on 63rd and Cottage Grove. We're on 63rd and King Drive. We 87th and the Dan Ryan. We're at 111th in Michigan. We're on Madison and Pulaski, and we are educating folks. We're saying you have no power over your police. This is why they run rampant. This is why you have to turn out 3,000 to 10,000 people to get a verdict to go your way. And we cannot continue to do that. But as long as the mayor has all of the power over appointment, and we have no power to unelect these people that he appoints, we're going to continue to have to put people in the street to pressure to just get a superintendent, police superintendent fired. Which, if you remember, when the Laquan McDonald video came out, now they had known about this for quite some time. Superintendent was on his left. 400 days. The superintendent was on this side, and the state's attorney was on this side. Fighted for us until pushed under that bus.
I must say, till the heat cranked up a little bit.
And he's still gonna be all right.
He was all right when he left.
He was all right when he left, and he's gonna be all right.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be all right because he took one for the team.
And he's the one I respect in another city.
They will respect. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But what we're talking about doing here in Chicago is historic. That's why I mentioned we're talking about police nationwide. What we're talking about is something that is historic. We're talking about giving that power over their police to the people, which has not been done in any city across this nation except for once in California, Berkeley, California. Outside of, we can talk about history. We could talk about right after the Civil War when blacks took over cities down south and elected their own political operatives, so on and so forth. But other than that, this has not been done before.
There are meetings coming up for the police accountability boards, and they're going from community to community to have these conversations. What exactly are we talking about when there has been delay after delay for even the discussion, from what I understand, of the implementation of the recommendations of the people that came here and had that after Laquan McDonald video aftershock, as I call it, when everybody was scrambling around trying to figure out a way to fix this with a nice bow? There still has not been any change. Mm-hmm. There hasn't even been, we're still talking about, can we possibly think about making the change? So I know that there's a schedule of hearings and conversations that are coming up. When we talk about CPAC, is that going to be brought up in these hearings, or once it is brought to the floor of the aldermen of the city council, we don't even need them to talk about it? How are we addressing this politically?
Well, this is so against the status quo. They have attempted to ignore us. They have attempted to act like it doesn't even exist. We put 3,000 people in the street, not in response to a killing or some type of event. We put 3,000 people in the street on a date that we decided to do it. That's how many people we had contact with. That has not been done in this city by anybody other than a union with that type of outreach, as long as I can remember. As a matter of fact, it hasn't been done. And there was a complete media blackout. They didn't even mention it. They didn't mention that they said it was, actually, my apologies, they did mention, they said it was a couple of hundred people outside. 3,000 people. But we have organized so many people. We delivered over 35,000 signatures to these aldermen. We have had people on the corners send in postcards. Thousands of postcards have come. So when we call the office, yeah, we're getting your postcards. But they want to ignore us. They can no longer ignore this. People know about community control of the police. They know that CPAC is that answer. And they know that what they are being offered, well, they're learning. And that's why I'm here having this discussion. We're learning that what we're being offered is a farce. What we're being offered, when we're offered a community board, see, they try to use those words to we're going to have a civilian board.
That's what IPRA was supposed to be.
That's what IPRA was supposed to be. But now they like I think you said it. You said they try to put this nice bow on it, right?
Yes.
They're still trying to tie that nice bow. They're still trying to convince us that to accept, that this looks nice. This is what you want. This is what you were asking for.
Right. Why y'all still mad?
Why are you still mad? We gave you a black superintendent. that in his 28 years
Has
hasn't
never seen any excessive force.
He hasn't actually seen it.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be true. We need to get somebody that's seen it.
Peace and blessings to you, brother, but I have questions about that.
So,
Yes.
CPAC will be on the table for these, and that's why I'm so excited about being introduced tomorrow, because the first meeting is on the 21st, and we will be there en masse, and they can no longer act as though they've never heard of CPAC. It will be introduced. It is on the table. There are a couple of other proposals on the table. Those proposals lead us back to the same thing we already had, which is appointment by the mayor. That is our issue.
And that should be everyone's issue, to me. But we're going to see how this plays out politically. But I want you, before we get to our next topic, tell people that are interested in joining the movement to get CPAC passed, what do they need to do?
First and foremost, I would like you guys to contact the Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. And you can do that by going onto our website, which is stoppolicecrimes.org. Stoppolicecrimes.org. Go there and get in contact with us. But reach out to your alderman. Let your alderman know that you want this power, that you demand this power. And if you don't get this power, he won't have a job, she won't have a job. That is the only thing that is going to move these aldermen. That is the only way that we got as far as we got. The alderman that's going to introduce this actually told me face to face, he said, it was the outpouring of all of those people that you guys brought out to these meetings that made me decide to cross over.
I'm going to say this before we take a break. My father told me years ago when we were in the 10th ward then, before they did the little redistricting like they like to do periodically. And it was under Verdoliak. So we're talking about a long time ago. And they wanted a stop sign at the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father went and saw Verdoliak and he said, yeah. And no stop sign. So the neighbors got together because there were a bunch of children about the same age. And that was a concern. They didn't want people just running through the street. And they said, we're going to create a block club. And then we're going to go representing the 89th and 8900 block of South Paxton's block club and have a conversation. So 3 of them went to see Mr. Verdoliak, and all of a sudden a stop sign showed up. We have to understand that working together as a unified force makes people say, I can't just blow them off like that. So let's get on this unified force here so that they won't just say, oh, that's just Rhea calling my phone. No, that's Rhea who represents one of the other 15 people on her side of the street.
There it is.
And they are all behind me, sitting at your door if necessary.
There it is.
And when we come back, we're going to have our and then we're going to talk about economic empowerment and entrepreneurship in the community on the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio station.
evening, Rhea Ray and my Straight No Chaser team. It is your main man, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moments. We're wrapping up our 8-part series, man. We're on step number 7 in the Cash Flow Mastery series, the 8 steps to financial success. Really quickly, let me recap steps 1 through 6, and then we'll get into step number 7. Number 1, master your cash flow, the money that's coming into your house, but especially the money that is leaving your house. Step number 2, create your mini emergency fund, right? That's $2,000 to $3,000 in some sort of easily accessible account, whether it's a money market account. We like a mutual bond fund because you get a better rate of return that way. Step number 3, create the habit of investing. Every time you get paid, do some sort of investment, whether you're putting an extra few dollars in your 401k, whether you have a separate IRA, it doesn't matter. Just create the habit. The amount that you invest doesn't matter at this point. Just create the habit. Step number 4, eliminate all consumer debt. If you're leasing furniture, if you have car loans, if you have credit card loans, if you have student loans, let's get rid of all of that debt because that frees up the money for you to do step number 5, which is increase your investing. And step 3, we created the habit. Step 5, we want to increase. Now that the debt is gone, we have more disposable income. So you want to bump your investments up to $300, $400, $500 per month into your investment accounts. And then step number 6, create a full emergency fund. That is 6 to 12 months of your full and total living expenses. So if you make, if you need $3,000 per month to live, then you want 3,000 times 6 or 3,000 times 12 in an emergency fund. So now let's move on to step number 7. You want to go ahead and make that big purchase. We got 7A and 7B. 7A, if you're renting, go ahead and prepare to buy your home. All right. If you already own your home, then let's start focusing that attention to paying off that mortgage, because at this point, that should be your last piece of debt to eliminate or get rid of. So again, step number 7, if you're renting, 7A would be go ahead to make your home purchase if that's something you desire to do, or 7B, if you are already buying a home, go ahead and focus all your efforts on eliminating that mortgage completely. Guys, if you follow these steps, we can flip the tide and have benefits to be passing down to our children versus bills. So we want to put ourselves in a position to leave a legacy for our family, and this is a game plan that I'm using to help me do just that. So if you want more details on that, go to financialhealthmentor.com, put in your best email address. I'll give you a game plan on how to do that. I'm your main man, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out Straight No Chaser with Rhea Ray as your host. Until I talk to you in next week's Money Moment, get your money up because you can do it. Peace.
And we're back on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com. Thank you, H. Cortez, with our Money Moment. But I'm still talking with my good friend, Jeff.
Good friend.
Good friend. And I'm going to open this segment that we have about 15 minutes to talk about at the most. I'm sure Earl boot us off the air with this. Last week, for those of you on my Facebook friends, you may have seen a post I put up with a young man who allowed me to take a picture of his shoes that were Giuseppe's, that I told him the only Giuseppe I had heard of was Pinocchio's creator. But he said this with pride and told me that it was a gift and that they cost him $850, and I almost had a stroke. And I did not put this on there, but this young man is on subsidized housing. And I was sitting there thinking, what could $850 have done besides be put on his feet? And that's one of the things that my friend Jeff is going to talk to us about, because our community suffers from a lack of economic empowerment and a lack of entrepreneurship that works. Now, we'll throw up a business in a minute, but we don't know necessarily what we're doing with it in a lot of times. And we need to get that right, because entrepreneurs make the overwhelming majority of quote unquote real money in this country. Mm-hmm. Versus working a salaried job where they know that they're going to keep you limited to how much income you will achieve and attain. So you've been working with pushing entrepreneurship for a while.
Yeah. More than anything, I've been trying to promote ownership of our community, and I studied a few formulas. I watched our Asian brothers and sisters. I watched and tried to do a little dissection of our Indian brothers and sisters,
Eastern
Arab,
Indian.
yes,
All right.
these brothers and sisters. Um, and what I noticed is that, um, well, they didn't chase their politicians.
They didn't have to.
They
They weren't
didn't.
about that.
They didn't chase politics first. Um, we have this talent wrestle hold of these politicians and bow or give our allegiance to these politicians before they can lift us up out of the situation that we're in. I think it's the opposite. I think if we take hold of our community, like my Arab and Eastern Indian brothers and sisters, uh, uh, Asian brothers and sisters, monopolized an industry, then hire their own, employ their own, and own their own community. During the last election, when I asked my Asian friend and I asked my uh, Arab friend who they were voting for mayor, I kid you not, they asked me who was running. This was not at the beginning of the election cycle. This was towards the end of the election cycle. They didn't have a clue. Well, I won't say they didn't have a clue named off a person or two here or there, but it really wasn't at the forefront of their mind. They weren't walking around holding signs. They owned their community. They were economically self-sufficient enough that they could have a seat at the table, at the political table, at any time that they wanted to.
Versus the African American community,
Who believes that if I carry the water for this politician, maybe he'll give me what I need to own my community.
maybe he'll give me a sip out the cup.
Maybe they'll give me a sip out the cup. Instead of these individuals who say, I will own the community and we will be so powerful that we can demand what we want from our aldermen, our state reps, our state senators, so on and so forth. So what I've been pushing is ownership of an industry. The Asian sisters and brothers, they started off doing nails, right? They went from doing nails to owning the nail shop.
Almost all of the nail shops.
Well, they got there eventually, but they went from doing nails
Yes,
to
it was
owning
a
the nail shop. It
step
was
to
step
step.
by step. Owning the nail shop. Then when they owned the nail shop, they brought in sister, brother, cousin to work as apprentices. What do apprentices do? They work for a lower price, right? They do labor in exchange for a little bit of money and a lot of knowledge. So they taught them the game. And not only how to do it, then they let them branch out. They help them to branch out. So after I teach you the game, because you didn't put in your time as an apprentice and work for these lower wages to learn this game, now you go and open the store. Now, to some of us, that may seem counterproductive. I'm gonna send somebody else out to open up another nail shop. That don't make sense. They're gonna take my. But how about this? I send somebody else out to open a nail shop. I send somebody else out to open a nail shop. I send somebody else out to open a nail shop. Now, when we go to buy nail polish, brushes, cotton balls, we buy them in bulk. Now, we get nail polish, cotton balls, chairs, so on and so forth for $1. And your little black store
is paying $5 to $10.
is paying $5. And wondering why this Asian can sell the nail polish and do the nails for $17. Well, $4, sell the nail polish for $4, and I'm buying it for $5. So they keep branched out to the point where they not only owned most of the stores out of business, but they also own the distribution. So now they own the distribution, and they were already part of the manufacturing. So now you have a monopoly. Now you can hire your sisters, your brothers, your children. You don't tell your children to go get a job. You tell your children to come get this job
That we've created
that we've created for you until you own, as we mold you to own your own. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about identifying a industry that we can commandeer, that we can somewhat monopolize, to utilize to hire our sisters, our brothers, our wives, our felons, so on and so forth. That is owning your own community, and there is power in that. There is power to take over your politics there. Right now, we can't run a real candidate. When I ran for alderman of the 21st Ward, folks with money wasn't trying to hear what I was talking about. Folks with money were getting money from small contracts with the government, and I mean small contracts with the government. And if they seen Gallivant with somebody like me that's talking about their freedom and their independence and their justice and their power, I don't know if I'm gonna get that. No, I'm gonna roll with.
I'm gonna roll with the safe $2 I have.
I'm gonna roll with the candidate that is already there, the candidate, the status quo candidate that is gonna make sure I get, possibly make sure I get this contract again next year. So they're bought and paid for. I would like to see us use industry to buy back our own community, to own our own community, to get our children to listen. I was told from old school organizers, if you want to get a lot of people to a meeting, you offer them something to eat. So we want to offer them something to eat. We want to offer them more than just something to put in their mouth, but something to put in their mind and something to put in their pocket. So we're going to utilize this training for this lawn care industry, this training for this CDL driving industry, this training for this property rehab industries to feed the youth. And while they eating, we're going to re-educate them because they have been miseducated. And I think he's making I don't know what that circle means.
That means that's Earl's bullying way of telling us to wrap it up. So for those people who are interested in joining, because this is a secondary movement, how do they get in touch with you? Oh,
you can call this cell phone, 773-559-2075. 773-559-2075. That's Jeff Baker. But I'm at the local organizing council with the Nation of Islam every Wednesday. They did not authorize me to give out all that information, but I would love to see y'all there because they're doing some real work there. Minister Jeffrey is incredible, and they working. And I've been with a lot of organizations. This organization is working, and it's a multitude of different types and religions and so on and so forth. Organizations in one room putting in work. So yeah, I can be found there Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. Other than that, 773-559-2075. Let's make something happen.
And if someone wants to contribute, that's all the same.
It's all the same. Call me.
All right.
Text me.
Reach him on Facebook, Jeff Baker. 2 F's, 1 K.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Straight No Chaser show.
Thank you for having me and let me do all that talking.
And we're going to do an update on both of these programs in the future. Okay. And with that, we are wrapping it up. So as always, I tell you all, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris, and I'm so glad to be with you tonight, and I pray I'm with you next week. Be safe, everyone. Keep it real.
It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.